afternoon, everyone. Waiting for the wine o'clock, I think, aren't you, now? Last session. So I hope you got from that introduction, I'm very much someone that does rather than talks about it. I am talking today, but that's unusual for me. I'm really doing the same job as many of you, running a company. That's what I do most days of the week, every week of the year. And I'm going to talk to you today about sustainability and about putting people and planet before profit. But this not as an add-on, not as an optional extra. I believe that if we do this as our businesses, put people and planet first, the profits will follow and we'll actually become more successful, more profitable businesses and be better businesses and maybe win one of the awards next year. Who knows? So what's not to like, really? You're doing the right thing, you have a better business, and the third thing I will talk about towards the end is actually you'll be a happier, more fulfilled business leader. So it's win-win-win. Are you ready to hear a bit more? Yeah. Okay. So, bit about what we do. The clicker's not, oh, there it is. So we're a specialty food wholesaler. We deliver to a whole diverse type of customers ranging from delis, garden centres, farm shops, Whole Foods. Last year we delivered 1.8 million cases to about just over 2,000 sites. We have 2 warehouses, an office, and we're very busy, as you can imagine. That's a lot of boxes going through the warehouse. A couple of years ago, we opened our own, became one of our own customers, and that business is called Flourish. And in effect, what we've done there is taken the best from what I've seen over the last 25 years and put it into one place and tried to be a really good example of a sustainable retail outlet. And so we have very little plastic on the fruit and veg. We do meat, but even our butchers say eat less meat. But when you do, make sure it's grass-fed, pasture-fed, and the best you can get. Just a few quick slides there. Restaurant as well. And then last year we opened our home and lifestyle shop. As you heard earlier, we won quite a few awards recently, which is always nice, isn't it? I don't really mind personally, but it's good for the people that work for us to know that what they're doing is being recognised. And last year we were #1. This year, failure. We're #2 this year. But to my surprise, we did pick up a trophy last night. These SME of the year, so that was nice, wasn't it? That's our history over the last 25 years. So good kind of solid growth throughout that. I know I don't look old enough to run a business that's 25 years old, but it's true. The moisturiser works quite well. But for for probably 2/3 of that time, I was running the business in what I would now call a scarcity model. Everything was really judged by the numbers. Could we do this? Could we afford it? All our decisions were made by the numbers first, and really the numbers alone, to be honest with you. And we grew, yes, we were successful to a degree, but look what's happened in the last probably 7 to 8 years in particular. Growth has been much, much faster. I've been a lot happier. The people that work for us have been happier, more fulfilled. We get much better people to come and work for us, and we've had a lot more impact on the world, which I'll come into. This was precipitated really by almost losing the business completely. We had a massive meltdown, IT-initiated meltdown. Who else has been in an IT disaster? Yeah, there's quite a few of them around. Almost lost the business. I think we were probably 6 weeks away from disappearing off the face of the planet. And I'll talk a bit more about that from a personal point of view later on. But we lost a lot of customers, we lost a lot of suppliers. We had about 50 people working for us at that time. And in the following 6 months after the meltdown, about half of them left because they couldn't stand it. Honestly, it was a horrible place to be. I hated going to work, which is never good when it's your business, is it? Has anyone else been there? Probably. It was soon after that we discovered something called B Corp. Who interesting, I always do this, who in the room has heard of B Corp? Okay, so that's about half. So B Corps are businesses that are measured on how good they are for the world. So it's a kind of fairly intricate scoring system in the areas of governance, customers, environment, community, and workers. How good you are for the world in all those areas. Too complicated to explain here. If you want to have a look, just type in BIA assessment into Google, and you can measure yourself. It doesn't cost anything. Once you are a B Corp, you need to not only measure yourself, but prove that you're doing what you're doing and get over a certain line of 80 points. But for me, at the time, it was really all I believed about business was suddenly I was being met with other people who believed what, oops, sorry about that. Because right at the start of our business, we started it for good, actually. Of our first 5 employees, we had 1 ex-drug addict, 1 alcoholic, you don't call them ex-alcoholics. He would say he's an alcoholic, but he wasn't drinking anymore. And 1 guy just came out of Reading prison. People who wouldn't get a job elsewhere. Prior to that, I'd been in the charity sector and realized that most mess in the inner cities are caused by not regular, valuable work. A lot of it is that, some of it's government policy. But when we started the business, I started it with another guy, we wanted to make a difference with how we employed people. We want to give people a chance and try and get them to help sort their lives out through employment. So there was a bit of a clue there. Sadly for me, after my business partner left after 2 years, we weren't making any money. Which is often the case. In 2 years, he didn't know that. I kind of expected it. He left, and I was just, I just went into probably panic mode, just trying to keep my head above water, and went into being the same as any other business. Those 3 people eventually left, and we didn't really do anything else like that. About probably 12 years later, we were by now making some profit. And I thought, well, yes, let's do something good with it. So I got involved with a community in Western Kenya, went out there with my daughter, and we realized that through giving away some of our profits, we could make a pretty big difference in this very poor rural community in Africa. Came back to the business and couldn't really talk about it for 2 weeks because I was crying every time I talked about it. So it wasn't great for imparting the information, but managed to pull myself together. And it was really, really interesting. Now, some of this is hindsight, but one person immediately stood up and said, we need to do something about this. I work 3 days a week. I'm going to give you my other 2 days a week to organize a fundraising ball, and let's raise some money and do something good in this tiny village in Western Kenya. A lot of other people started sponsoring children over there, and it was noticeable that people were coming to work with a bit more of a spring in their step. They liked working for a company. It wasn't just about making money. It wasn't just about putting a roof over theirs. They liked the fact that they were working for a business that was starting to make a difference in the world. I say I picked that up. I probably am doing most of that from hindsight, but it definitely happened, and I should have probably taken more notice, and maybe we wouldn't have had that meltdown we did in those years later. So moving the business from a place of scarcity, money makes all the decisions, and we gradually, slowly move the business into a place where it's operating more from an abundance point of view, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. This is now our business mantra. I mentioned this when I picked up the award last night, for those who are here. Sorry if I got a bit carried away. But put people and planet first, and the profits follow. I used to talk about this as more of a balancing act of juggling 3 balls, all beginning with P. I've now changed to this because I think you've got to get into the mindset, and it is a change of mindset, because we're all brought up in this very scarce mentality. And if we get into the abundant, generous mindset, we will have better businesses. But to do that, we have to put people and planet first. And we'll talk about how we do that in a bit. But for us as a business, this, which we produce something like this every year. It's about 24 pages of how we've made a difference in the previous year. Lots of businesses do that. A lot of corporates do it, and a lot of it is greenwash, and some of it's hogwash. But the people that work for us know this is true, and they take this home to their families and friends, and they're proud to work for us because we do this kind of thing. Yes, there are numbers in the business, but now it's not just about profit and loss and revenue. It's about how many hours we've worked for charities in the year. It's about how much waste food we've not thrown away but given to the homeless in London. It's about how many other of our suppliers we've influenced to do things better in our supply chain. And it's about how much training we've done. Oh, what's that? 740 hours spent on training in 22-23. Just coming to the end of our next year, so there'll be another one of those happening quite soon. These are now the measures of success for us. And it's important to try and understand this, that this is how we generally operate. We can't do this unless that happens. If we spend money on that, then that means less profit. Well, yes, there is a degree to which that's true, but if we get into this abundant mindset of putting people and planet first, this formula goes out the window. 1 minus 1 doesn't equal 0, because the more we give to people, the more we get back. And it was Chelsea earlier talking about mentoring. She said that very sentence, didn't she? The more she gives away in terms of mentoring, the more she receives back. This is a principle of life. Most religions in the world have something like that as a saying, that the more we give away, the more we receive back. And that is true in business, just as it's true in your personal life. And it's not difficult to work out, is it, with people? Because the more generous we are to our people, the harder they'll work for us, the longer they'll stay in the business. They won't leave as often. They're happy, they're more productive, they like coming to work. This is a sad story. When we opened the retail business, we didn't have a Christmas party. It was meant to be Christmas. COVID killed it. We actually had a Christmas party at Easter. But two of the people who worked there, one was probably in their 40s. Most of them are young people, actually. Two of the older ones. One was in their 40s, one in their 50s. And they both came to me the same evening of this party and said, I've never looked forward to coming to work at anywhere else I've worked. Well, of course, that made my evening. I could go home, which would have been better for everyone, because they wouldn't have done the karaoke I did later on. But obviously, chuffed to bits with that. But also how sad that they'd worked for I don't know how many other companies for 20, 30 years. They'd never enjoyed going to work before. How tragic. I hope that we run businesses where people look forward to going to work. The Sunday Times Best Places to Work, we've just entered this for the first time, actually, but it's no coincidence. The way this is scored is why over 50% of your people have to do a survey, can't be influenced by the management. These are also the most successful growing companies in the UK that are on that list. That's not a coincidence, obviously. It's obvious, isn't it? So we get this, as far as people are concerned, the more we give to our people, the more we get back. When we're members of the Living Wage Foundation, which is slightly higher than the government one, but when the government one first came in, a lot of our retail customers were complaining about having to pay their people the living wage, as it was then called. It used to be called the minimum wage. What? If you're a business, why would you not want to pay the people that work for you enough to live on? Really? Does that make good, morally wrong, obviously, but does that make good business sense? Absolutely not. So we do things that other businesses don't do. These are 3 lovely people that work for us in our business, all neurodiverse. 2 of these people are autistic, 1 Downs. And you think, well, yes, it takes us a bit longer to train these people to do jobs. But when they do it, they're bloody good at it. In fact, they're better than my kids. I mean, my kids are in their 20s. My kids would be rubbish at the jobs they do. they do, once they got it, they are the most consistent, loyal workers you can ever imagine. And we love having them there. In fact, we've just taken on someone else this week. Not only that, but there's a massive feel-good factor in our local community because they know what we're doing. Their families absolutely love us. In fact, one of their mums is now also working for us. And there's just this feel-good factor across the business. The other workers who work for us, there's about 60 people work with them. They love having them there. And not only that, they're learning how to connect with people who are different to them. Contrast that with this. This is a graph of the CEO pay versus the average pay. I think this one's from America, from 1965. And look what's happened since then. It was 2014 or 24. The lower line is the basic pay, and the dark blue one includes bonuses. So 14, 15 times more than the average worker. Look what's happened as time's gone on. It's now running at nearly 400 times, including bonuses. In the UK, it's about 300 of the FTSE 250. This isn't good business. If you're a worker in those businesses, do you really enjoy going to work, knowing that really all you're doing is making money for the rich people at the top, or the shareholders? For me, that isn't good business. It's not good for the actual business itself. It's also not good for society. There's loads of evidence that the more inequality there is in society, the more unhappy everyone is in society, and that includes the rich people. There's more people going to prison, more crime, more single-parent families, more mental illness, more suicides in societies that are more unequal. And unfortunately, the UK is about the third worst in the world. It's not what we do. It is a high-low ratio. That was the high to average ratio. Our high-low ratio is 3.8 currently. And I don't get paid the most, by the way. That's good, I think. Under 5 is probably about right. Volunteering. So we, as a person, have known how much it's helped me to become a better person, better leader through giving back. So we actually make our people do it as well. It sounds a bit harsh, compulsory volunteering, doesn't it? But they have to do 16 hours a year. Some do a bit more than that. And there was a little resistance when we brought this in. But this is a quote from one of the people who was resisting, a guy called Tim. Volunteering has been a revelation. It's good for the soul, and I feel better about myself. I've met people from diverse backgrounds who give up their time to support the charity. He absolutely loved it, and he was one of the ones that didn't want to do it initially. And to get that giving back amongst your people that work for you is a great thing to do. We have some great story. We have a Tuesday morning meeting. We have some great stories on Tuesday morning of how people have got on with their volunteering, and it just brings that life back into the business. By the way, one of our habits as a company, and to put some of this stuff in place, you need habits. And one of our habits is any meeting, board, team, or everyone together on a Tuesday morning, we never talk about numbers first. We never talk about finances. We quite often talk about finances, but it's never first. Because if you do that, the people who are in the room, they think, well, these people, all they're interested in is numbers. They're not interested in me. The other thing we do in our meetings is we check in on how people are at the start of a meeting. Again, we don't get straight onto business. It is all business, by the way. But we go around the room and say, well, how's your week going? How's your day going? What's been good? What's not been good? And people feel important in businesses like that. They don't feel that important when the CEO is getting 400 times more than they are. Planet. Obviously, big subject at the moment. We've always been reasonably good on the people, not quite so good on the environment, until something happened 5 years ago, and I was on a stage a bit like this, talking about people, planet, profit, and I put that slide up on the screen and just started crying. It's highly embarrassing. It happens quite a lot now, so I'm used to trying to control it. At the time, I was just overcome with emotion. Not great. 2 minutes. They didn't turn up to see a grown man cry. But 2 minutes of weeping, finally got through it and carried on with the talk. But what was happening at that point, I had to work out what was happening afterwards. And what it was, for the first time, we hear the numbers on climate change, don't we? But how real is it? I don't know sometimes. But that was the point for me when it became real. For the first time, I realized that the CO2 we've put into the atmosphere, largely in the global north, has killed people for quite a long time and is still killing people now. That, for me, was a bit of a game-changing moment, and our urgency to do more for the planet in the business kicked off at that point. We run most of what we do is distribution. There's a lot of carbon in our supply chain, and we managed to make some changes to take off 1.7 million miles off our journeys travelled, which was 1,400 tonnes of CO2. We still got a hell of a lot more to do, don't get me wrong, but we started doing more for the planet. And particularly the younger people that work for us. We've got about 110 people in the business altogether. But particularly now, people are joining us because of what we're doing for the planet, and it is tending to be that Gen Z and soon to be Gen Alpha coming in as well. But so businesses that do this, put people and planet before profits, actually are the ones making more profits. That's not their first aim, but because they're doing this good stuff, the profits follow. I absolutely strongly believe that. So B Corps, this is a survey done of B Corps, which are these companies I talked about at the beginning. How much are they growing versus other normal business? The normal is from the BEIS, Department of Trade and Industry. I think it's changed its name again. But 26% growth compared to 5% growth on average. Employee headcount growing by 14% compared to 1%. Attrition rate, so people leave 18% in a year in a normal business, only 8% in a B Corp. Securing finance for growth, 70% versus 56%, and acquiring R&D tax credits, 43% versus. That doesn't mean they're better at claiming, by the way. It means that there's probably more innovation and growth going on. And this is what these are the companies that people want to buy from. Over 70% in all those metrics. People think businesses should be better. So they're going to vote with their feet. Obviously, there's a cost of living crisis, and all this is tied in with the social side as well. I have to park that for now. But generally, if money wasn't an object, people vote with their feet, and they want to buy from companies that are doing good for the planet, treating their workers well, treating the supply chain well, and impacting for good the local community. We must get away from that scarcity mentality, which treats people like resources. I hate the term HR. Human resources? Really? They're not resources, they're people. Can we scrap HR and call it people or something, please? We've been using the wrong term for ages. And same with the planet. Businesses have extracted, taken far too much from the planet, not given anything back. And I actually hate, that's another phrase I hate, is giving something back, because it's actually much better not to take it in the first place. We need businesses that are impacting for positive. We've done enough damage for the last 250 years. It's time to turn the tables and actually do something positive. Just as I start to close, the explosion when we almost lost the business was not only a life-changing moment for the business, but also for me. It was around that time my marriage broke down, I had 2 serious illnesses and almost lost the business. I suddenly realized I wasn't that great. You know, the successful Paul Hargreaves suddenly wasn't such a great guy after all. A lot of ego was dissipated at that point, and I had to start again. And hopefully a more compassionate, loving Paul Hargreaves came out of that very difficult time. And I wrote the first book I wrote was about really the 3 Ps, people, planet, profit. that book there, Forces for Good. But as I got to the end of writing that book, I realized that actually, if I want to change the world, it does actually start with me. And if I'm going to impact the world for good with my business, I actually need to be a more loving, compassionate person and learn to put other people first. And I wasn't really doing that. So great to have passion, great to have a desire to make the world a better place, but we also need to be personally transformed, to learn to love. Love used to be a bit of a dirty word in business, isn't it? I mean, the HR would be involved probably in some cases, but really loving the people that work for you, loving your customers, loving the local community, being compassionate, that's what makes a great business. If you want a good business, learn to love. It might involve personal work, it might involve pain. Not all of us have had easy backgrounds, but if we can love our people more, if we can really love the planet, if we can cry tears for those poor people in Bangladesh, 200,000 of which lose their homes every year, then we will run better businesses. Thanks for listening, and I think we're going to some questions.
Thank you very much for that, Paul. Really powerful stuff. And I think what I was really interested to see was that graph that you drew and the kind of link and how profit really ticked up when you put those things in place and when you became a B Corp. But it's all very well and good talking about this, but you do have to make the link, I think, between profit and purpose. And I was having the same chat with Sarah McVitie earlier, and she was saying you can only make the business case for something, for going green, for being more sustainable, if there is a clear link to profit, because at the end of the day, if businesses aren't profitable, they will go out of business. Yeah. So you can't ignore that side of things, can you?
You can't ignore it, but it's a case of trusting that that will happen. Yes, I mean, yeah, absolutely, I believe in profit. And actually, the more profit we've made, the more good we can do. So it's, you know, it's harder when it is hard for startups. It's hard to get into, I mean, it's much easier for us now than it was even 5 years ago because there's more money to do the good stuff we do. But it is a case of, if we're always making all our decisions based on money, I don't think we will be those generous employers, and certainly probably won't do things that are best for the planet. So it is a bit of a mindset shift, and it's not easy. I think that because of the way we're brought up in the global north, the west, whatever you want to call it, we have a very individual mindset, and I think we need to change that mindset to be a more community-orientated mindset, and that's probably when the shift will happen.
So just quickly, before we go into our panel discussion, when is the right time to start thinking about this? Because obviously your business is a lot bigger than lots of the businesses that are represented in this room and watching at home. Is it something they need to think about from the outset, or is it something that only comes when they become profitable, for example?
The danger of doing that is like people who work hard all their lives, you know, don't give much away, and they say, I'm going to work for charity when I'm retired. No, because it's joyful and exciting and fulfilling to do it now. So because you get a lot more fulfillment as an individual, as a business leader, start now. I mean, we had we kind of started like that and fell away from it. But when we started Flourish in June 21, it was like an opportunity to start again. And we put all this stuff in right at the beginning. So it's a bit of the reason I enjoyed it, it was a bit of an experiment. And did it all go right? No. But it was, on the building alone, we probably spent another £100,000 that we didn't need to spend on making it better from an environmental point of view. But that's why we had a queue of people queuing up to work for us. And on the day we opened, we had a queue that went around the corner of people waiting to get in for breakfast. So I think, things haven't totally changed in society, but start now because this is the kind of business consumers want.
A really powerful note to end on. Paul Hargreaves, thank you very much.